Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome to the Indian Military History Podcast. I am Vikram Dalal, and today we have with us a very special guest, Lieutenant General Navkiran Singh Ghei, retired from the Indian Army, PVSM, AVSM, commissioned in the Parachute Regiment, company commander in Maldives in 1988, commanded a battalion in Kargil, commanded a mountain division in counter-terrorist operations, and commanded a corps on the Western Front of India. Also, he has a double MPhil from Ahilyabai University and Madras University. So, a person with a lot of, with a plethora of knowledge, plethora of stories, plethora of things to educate our audience. Sir, thank you so much for taking out the time and joining the podcast today.
Thank you, Vikram. A pleasure being with you on this podcast. It's really, frankly, a new experience for me, and I think I'm going to love it.
So I am looking forward to it. I've read about all the stuff in 1988 in Maldives, and I'm super excited about to know from a first-hand experience from you about this. So, just to set the context of today's podcast, so today we'll be talking about the operation that took place in Maldives in 1988. Maldives has been in the news recently with all the anti-India remarks that they made, but they've been historically very close to the government of India and the people of India. So much so that in 1988, November of 1988, there was a coup that was attempted on the government at the time, and they reached out to the government of Maldives at the time reached out to the United States, to Britain, Pakistan, Singapore, and no one was able to come to their rescue in time. And then they reached out to India, and India sent its armed forces to help rescue that government at the time. And a young Major Navkiran Singh, 6 years into service at that time, was one of the leading troops, one of the leading soldiers leading his troops into battle at that time. So we'll be talking about that today.
Thank you, Vikram. Now, you're right that Maldives has been in the news in recent times for various things. But we are talking of this Operation 1988 is almost 35 years ago, you know.
Yes.
So the geostrategic, the geography remains the same, but the geostrategic context of Maldives has changed over these 35 years. In
I see.
1988, when we went in, possibly the geostrategic context was not as heated up, as hot as it is today.
Okay.
But like you rightly said, that it is important to know one's history.
Yes.
If we know our history well, then we are better equipped to face the future. That's what I feel. And therefore, I think it's an interesting topic, and I will go through as to how these things happened. And it may have lessons for us. It had a lot of lessons for us at that time, operational lessons and tactical lessons that we learned to improve reactions to similar situations in the future that we may have had. So there may be certain things which are perceptions, certain
Yep.
things which are factual, certain things which are not so factual, you know, because as you move away from the date of an event, things
Yep.
tend to get tinted, you know, colored and all. So
Yes.
you may think that some of the things I may say are possibly not given in the texts and not recorded in the history. But what I'm going to talk is generally from my memory and experience of about 35 years. I also may be wrong in certain places. So you
It's
can
fine.
give and take for that.
Yes.
Now,
And
talking of, yeah, please.
no, I was just saying, yeah. So I wanted to, I completely agree with that, and that's the whole intent of this podcast is to get the first hand information from folks who were there on ground at the time, and get as much information as possible, because a lot of times these things are not captured in books or other
Yeah,
things. So that is the whole intent of this. So I
absolutely.
wanted, so say for instance, we have a time machine.
Yeah.
We and Sir, you are in the time machine, and we are teleporting you back to November of 1988, a young major
I'm,
guy.
I'm young again.
So, sir, you are in November 1988. You are a young major. Your command. So, stuff is happening in Maldives. There's limited
Yeah,
information that's out there. Your commanding officer comes to you
yeah.
and your team that, okay, we have to. What was the situation? What were the objectives
Yeah,
of
so
the operation? Let's go from
I'll
there.
go over it. Yeah, yeah. Vikram, I would like to go over it, you know, because recalling and going back from hindsight and all, I will tell you exactly how things happened. You know, that will be because that also I think has not been narrated exactly in any place. So, firstly, I think we need to look a little bit at the geography of Maldives to start with, you know, to get the context. So, if you can just look at the map of Maldives, We
Sure.
know that Maldives is a big archipelago, spread around over a large area with a large number of islands. It consists of more than 1,200 islands, actually. So Maldives consists of more than 1,200 islands, and the name Maldives actually comes from the island which is the capital, that is Malé. From Malé, the word Maldives is derived. So that is how it is called Maldives. And the beauty is that out of these 1,200 islands, I believe at that time, maybe a little more may be inhabited. Approximately just about 200 islands were inhabited in 1988. Rest of the islands were just virgin and empty.
Oh,
They were ideal for tourism and film shootings and things like that. The
nice.
other fact about it is that it's a very rich coral area, and the
Okay.
islands, are surrounded by rings of beautiful coral all around, which is dying around in the world. But 1988, it was full of coral. And this aspect also had an operational significance. As we go along, we will talk about it. Now, the
Okay.
strategic significance of Maldives, you can say, is that it is very close to India. It's so close
Yep.
to India, as you're seeing on the map now. It is so close to India. And as a matter of fact, the northernmost island, the northernmost atoll, the northernmost island, is just 30 nautical miles from the southernmost island of Lakshadweep Island Group, which is Indian territory. So it's just
Oh
30
wow.
nautical miles away. So you can imagine the security significance that Maldives has for India.
Yep.
And as a matter of fact, in this context, what you were talking of, a little bit of a standoff which happened between Maldives and India in very recent times. And as a part of that standoff, India has now established a naval base in the southernmost island of Lakshadweep. So that is a reaction which has come as today's thing, what has happened. Now,
Yep.
if you look from Sri Lanka is northwest just about 400 kilometers.
Right.
400 kilometers, that would make all just about little less than maybe 300 or about 200 and some nautical miles from Maldives. So very critical situation it has. Another interesting thing is that Diego Garcia, if you may know, your viewers would know, is a US base in the Indian Ocean. This
Yep.
Diego Garcia is a logistics base of the United States, which was established during the Second World War, and the US continues to have a logistic base in this area because this gives them a lot of area dominance around here, and this
Right.
uncharted kind of area gives them an advantage. So this Diego Garcia base is present today. It was present then also. It's a big logistic base with airfields and logistic stocks located there, which can be picked up by the forces whenever they need to operate in any of these areas around in this thing.
I see.
Now, I would also like to talk about the threat perception at that time for Maldives. Those days,
Mhm.
situation, there was no threat perception. The Maldives did not feel any threat from anywhere. And as
Yeah.
a
It
result
was.
of that,
Yep.
they felt unthreatened. So, as a result of that, they did not have a defense force as such. Maldives just had a National Security Service, NSS. That is
Hmm.
all. So it was, and you can say an amalgamation of police, a little bit of guarding duties, this kind of a gendarmerie. So that is all they had. So there was no security threat. They were not very well equipped to counter any threat which came to them in 1988. So that was the situation in Maldives, in the context today and that day. And actually, uh, China also didn't have such deep pockets then. The Chinese Navy was expanding, and the
Yep.
Chinese presence in the Indian Ocean was very limited. Hardly
Right.
any presence they had in the Indian Ocean. So the Chinese were far away from here, and they possibly never even sent the ships to Maldives or anything of that sort in 1988.
Okay.
Word about, yeah, tell me.
No, no. I was just. It's
Okay.
sort of interesting that Diego Garcia is so close to the Maldives,
Yeah, it is. Diego
and
Garcia is 727 nautical miles south.
yeah.
Just 727 nautical miles, 1100 kilometers, which is nothing. In the context
Right.
of today's strategic capabilities, it is nothing. 1100 kilometers is nothing at all.
Right.
So, yeah. And then the personalities at that time, it's important to also know 1988. Mr. Abdul Gayoom, who was the president of Maldives, was a scholar. He had, studied in Cairo University. He was a very respected elder man, a respected older man of Maldives. and he
Hmm.
had been president since 1978.
Okay.
And this was his third tenure. He was into his third tenure. He was a keen cricketer, and the people generally liked him.
Okay.
And he was a friend of India. He was a friend of
Yes.
India, but at the same time, Maldives also had a good relationship with Sri Lanka, Malaysia, and a relationship possibly with Pakistan also, because Maldives is primarily a Muslim nation.
Okay.
98.5% of their population is Muslim, and
Okay.
out of the 98.5, 99% are Sunnis. So it's a
Sunnis.
Sunni
Okay.
nation with a very small percentage of Shia. So there was a natural affinity towards Pakistan also, but they were very friendly with India. And in it's very interesting to know that in end of October 1988, Mr. The President, President Ghayum, had planned a visit to India.
Yes.
Planned a visit to India, and the purpose was to attend the fourth assassination anniversary of Prime Minister Indira Gandhi.
Oh, yeah, because
They
1984,
had not
that's when
been
the
able to,
assassination
yeah,
happened, October 31st. Yep.
they had not been able to attend the, the actual cremation and all which happened when she had passed away. So this
Okay.
thing was planned that he's going to come to India end of October. And
Okay.
as is the normal norm, what happens is that when a president is planning a visit, the High Commissioner of India in Maldives was Mr. A.K. Banerjee at that time. Mr.
Hmm.
Banerjee traveled to Delhi a few days before that, in the end of October. Primarily, idea is to make arrangements and fix all the things for the president of Maldives to come. That is the normal tradition. Whenever a head
Yeah.
visits, a High
Yep.
Commissioner comes here. Now, Mr. Banerjee, the High Commissioner, was in Delhi, and since the education and all was not so good in Maldives, his family was staying in Delhi, so he came a few days. He was there preparing,
Hmm.
and he says in his words that he was surprised when suddenly he came to know that President Gayoom had postponed his visit, and
Oh.
he came to know from his embassy channels, and evidently, President Gayoom rang up a Prime Minister, Mr. Rajiv Gandhi, to tell him that he
Mm.
apologizes that he's not able to travel now and he would like to postpone his visit.
Okay.
Now,
What was the reason for that?
what were the reasons for this postponement? Now, in hindsight, it appears that Mr. Gayoom had an inkling that something is going on.
Oh, so
He
he
had
had a
his,
bit of an idea that something may be happening, and
yeah,
it's
he
better for
had
me
an
to not to leave
inkling
the country right now. Okay.
because he was getting feedback. He was an entrenched president, had been president for 10 years. He was getting feedback. There were some sections of society or some people who were not happy with his rule, and he also had some feedback that they might try something drastic. When he goes out of the country.
Hmm.
So he postponed. I mean, that is a conjecture in hindsight, and possibly it sounds to be a good conjecture. That's why he postponed his visit.
Okay.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
all the folks that were trying to do this coup, who were the quote unquote terrorists at that
So
time who were
that
trying to
time,
do this coup?
at that stage, possibly he had an inkling, but he didn't know who were the people
Uh,
and who were the people who were doing it. So we will come to that. To the question
okay.
towards the end of it, as to who were the people. He didn't know something is happening. He postponed his visit, and then
Okay.
and the High Commissioner of India is here, and lo behold, on 3rd of November 1988, early morning around 6:30 onwards, calls from Maldives started coming. They came to the High Commission
Okay.
also from his secretary in the High Commission. They came from some
Hmm.
Maldives minister or someone to the joint secretary in the MEA who looks after Maldives. The
Okay.
joint secretary in MEA is called as BSM. It was that time. Now there's a change. So this
Okay.
one joint secretary, he handled Burma, Sri Lanka, and Maldives.
Oh, that's what's BSM. Okay.
BSM.
That
So
makes
the call
sense.
came
Okay.
to him also that we need help.
Okay.
They asked for help. They told the situation, and slowly the situation, it was not known. But what came to be known then was that since 4:30 a.m. there had been shooting going on in Malay,
Ooh.
firing going on in Malay, and some people from outside had possibly come in a ship. and they had embarked there and come into Male, and they were shooting, and with the fear, because like you understand, we the president had some inkling, so possibly he must have put some SOPs in place. The president was moved to a safe house,
Okay.
but these people who came in slowly, as information kept coming in, they took charge of the radio station, and they took control of the TV station. They killed a few of the NSS people on the roads and streets on duty. Whoever they came across, they killed them. There were dead bodies, because the NSS, like I mentioned earlier, that's why I said that in the context, was not a very strong force which could possibly, oppose these mercenaries. They
Yeah.
were actually mercenaries who had been hired by, like you asked the question, so let me come out. There was a very rich businessman in Maldives, Mr. Abdullah Lutfi.
Hmm.
Abdullah Lutfi was a rich man. He had the money. He had connections all over, and these ministers and all used to go to Sri Lanka for nightlife, for education, for this and all. He had the money around, and so he thought that, let me become the president. So he hired these mercenaries from. They were members of PLOTE. At that
Hmm.
time, Tamil problem was already going on, and they
Hmm.
were the People's Liberation of Tamil Ilam. He paid money
Okay.
to their boss and got these whatever number of people. It was not known how many number of people are there. He got them.
S- so that organization PLOTE, that is different than LTTE, which was
Yeah,
another
yeah, yeah.
organization
See,
within. Okay, so these are two
see,
different things.
you're right. You're right. Actually, what happened when the Tamil issue started, if you're going to venturing into Sri Lanka now, there were a number of Tamil organizations.
Hmm.
PLOTE was one of them. LTTE turned out to be the strongest, with the support that Prabhakaran had and his ability to garner funds from Tamilians abroad and all. So LTTE became the prime later on as things developed.
Hmm.
87 it started. LTT became the prime, and there were number of ERPLF and all. There were a number of other small terrorist, militant, or not militants, we will say Tamil groups who were fighting for their rights and
Yeah.
all. So they
Right.
got merged or overtaken by LTT in the long term.
Hmm.
And so that was the situation, and there was a fear that if there's no help in soon enough time, they will find out the president, and then the game is over. Once they get hold of the president, the game would be over. So
All
when
right.
these messages came, our prime minister at that time, Mr. Rajiv Gandhi, a word about him, he was also proactive and with a good strategic understanding, and therefore at that time you'll understand that the Indian peacekeeping force had also gone to Sri Lanka just around that time.
Yes. Right. Right.
We had carried out what the Americans have done now in Gaza. They had dropped supplies by air. India had done it in 1980, 87, 88. We had
Right.
dropped supplies over Jaffna. It's a symbolic thing to tell them that we dropped supplies to support the Tamils who were being at that time cornered by this. So anyway, that is a different situation. So there was a meeting called in New Delhi at 9 a.m. for 9 a.m. of the crisis management group,
Okay.
and this meeting was called for at 9 a.m. And it was held in the, most probably, I think I'm quite certain about it, in the Military Operations Directorate top rooms of the Indian Army headquarters in South Block. The
Okay.
MEA is also there. The Prime Minister's office is also nearby there only and all. So at
Okay.
9 a.m. this meeting took place, and in this meeting, the Prime Minister, Mr. Rajiv Gandhi, was there. Possibly the Army Chief General Sharma SN Sharma was traveling at that time. The
Hmm.
Vice Chief Lieutenant General Rodriguez was present. The Director of Military Intelligence, Major Raghavan, was there. And of course, the other cabinet, like the foreign ministers and all, must have been there. The
Hmm.
foreign secretary was Mr. KPS Menon, who was later the NSA and all. He was present out there. And the Secretary S, who looks after the NSG and the other kinds of things, was Mr. T.N. Seshan, another famous personality. So he was present there. And from the MO Directorate, as a brigadier at that time, VP Malik, who later on became the chief of the army staff, was present. And
Okay.
so there
Nice.
were
Okay.
almost people who were present in this meeting. And to open the meeting, the prime minister, showing his strategic kind of sight that he had, a vision that he had, and he opened the conversation saying that this is what has happened, and that there's a request from the country, and they are a friendly country, and strategically they're important, and I think we should go and help them. So that is what the Prime Minister felt and stated, and therefore,
So I have a question here, sir. In the research that I did, it showed that okay, the first they reached out to the United States, the Britain, Singapore, Pakistan. It seems
no,
like
I don't
Diego.
think it is
Oh, I'm
correct. I
sorry.
don't think it is correct. So,
Okay,
you said that in the beginning. I don't think it is correct. So, what happened was actually what my understanding is, and what I know from the MEA papers and things like that, that
okay,
it was known that they asked Pakistan and Malaysia also for help.
okay.
So, the issues in this meeting which were discussed were, the first issue which were discussed in this meeting, in the strategic level was like the Indian forces were already committed in Sri Lanka, IPKF.
Yep.
Most of the troops which are located in south of India had already been moved to Sri Lanka. The Navy and the
Uh,
Air Force also logistics loans they were quite heavy. So the first question was this: that with that commitment already, can we do it or not? But keeping the Prime Minister's desire in mind, the Army headquarters, Naval headquarters, the armed forces of India are generally very positive. They're very positive. They said there's no issue, and we don't think the opposition is going to be very strong. Though there was no information, detailed information at that time, they said we can do it. So the operation, we said, but Mr. T.N. Session, there's also discussion which took place. There was Secretary S and who was also who was looking after the NSG. He said that because of the commitments of the army, the NSG, which is actually an internal security force, which is trained for anti-hijacking and anti-terrorist operations, he felt they could do it.
okay.
But then the decision was taken at that stage. So this is one issue discussed, and it was decided that no, the army will do it because you don't know what the opposition is, you don't know what weaponry they're having, and the
Hmm.
air force and all the navy have to be involved. So it's better that the army does it. So that is one thing which came up. The second
Okay.
also issue was discussed that if Pakistan and Malaysia, maybe someone else also, maybe USA also, someone has been asked for help, then possibly they said that Malaysia and Pakistan, it was assessed that they do not have the strategic logistics capability and the distance for comparatively distance from Maldives, so possibly would not come in. But the question
Hmm.
of USA was definitely discussed because of Diego Garcia. It was felt that
Yes.
India is very
Right.
close, and the US may take this amiss that these
Hmm.
guys, Indian armed forces, are going into Maldives, and it was decided that we must ask USA also about it and take USA on board and tell them that this is what we are planning to do if they're okay with it. So that was
Oh.
another decision taken. That was another
Oh.
decision taken.
So the point over here was that okay, that the United States may think that Indian army is invading the Maldives, and sort of to avoid that any miscommunication with them, we sort of
Yeah,
got them on board and made sure that okay,
yeah.
we tell them what's going on and what our plan
Absolutely,
is.
absolutely. And
Okay,
the
okay,
vicinity of Diego Garcia, US is sensitive with big base that they're moving here. So that was another thing which was decided. So these three, four things were decided, and we decided the army will lead it, and the navy and the air force would definitely support it. Another issue which we discussed, which is of a tactical kind of a thing, was that now which troops to use. Till then, it's not
yes,
about which army because the army is committed there, what to use. Then it was decided that okay, let's employ the para brigade. The
okay,
para brigade was located in Agra. So they said that let's use and the Air Force said that we have the strategic lift capability with IL-76s, we can lift them, and so that was there. But then the question also came up. Initial suggestions were made by some people out there that let's drop to a para assault, airborne assault. Airborne
okay.
assault is that you jump. But then, very fortunately, another gentleman who was present there in that ops room at that time was Brigadier Spatnikar. Brigadier
Hmm.
Spatnika was brought in specially by the DGMO because he had been our DA in Washington, defense attaché in Washington before, and he had commanded the para brigade.
Oh,
So
okay,
he knew the nitty gritties of airborne assault, and then he was very adamant. He said that airborne assault is not possible because Mole itself is a very densely populated kind of a place. There is no clear areas, no deserts where you can jump. And even let's
oh,
say in the airfield, if you want to jump Lule, and if you look at those maps later on, we look at them, it's a narrow, long strip.
right.
And in the sea, in a atoll like that, their wind speeds are 20 knots plus almost any time up in the air. And if you drop the paratroopers, 90% of them will just drift into the sea. And with the corals
Oh,
around, corals are like sharp rocks, and we'll have massive casualty even before the operation starts. We could have. And
oh,
therefore,
wow.
the airborne assault thing was said that that could only be as a last resort with a limited number of people. with a limited number of people, a small thing if needed. You know, so it was kind of a thing decided because the information also was there, not clear, but there was a kind of an information that possibly the rebels who have come in have not taken charge of the airfield
Airfield,
as yet.
airfield.
But it was not known because it was a long time, so
So
early in the morning, 9 a.m., 10 a.m. and all.
right.
So these were the
So
kind of decisions which were taken during this meeting, which ended at about 11:30.
okay, so just to be clear, so there's no airport or airfield within Male. So the closest airfield or airport available is the island next to Male, which is called Hulhule Island, which is
Gulule,
like
yeah,
just a very
absolutely.
adjacent to Male, and that's the airfield that we were looking at. Like, okay, if this is not, which seems like a very, I mean, yes. So what you're saying is that we had intelligence that this may not be captured, but if I was thinking from the mercenaries' perspective, they captured the radio station, they captured all the other important points within Male. But to me, I would be like, all right, that those airfields are also important, and that should be like the prime thing that we should capture first. So there was viable evidence that that airfield is very likely
No,
not
I mean,
captured.
there was no evidence as such, but
Okay.
therefore, that's what I'm saying, that there were two options. The options were that first option is land because airborne assault is going to be very dangerous. And in
Hmm.
case that doesn't work out, and then the plan was, we will talk about it. Then the plan was that, see, the aircraft has to be modified specially for airborne drop and for carrying troops. There's a special
O-
modification has to be done to the aircraft. So the
okay,
plan
and that
was,
wasn't
if we
okay.
can't land, in that case, the aircraft will be diverted to, earlier the plans were very different actually. And so it was just building up at this stage. So this was the
Right.
broad thing where it was decided that, okay, the Army, Navy, Air Force go in and let's go ahead and do it. And the government
Hmm.
of India is supporting this mission, inform, keep USA in picture, and then go ahead. That was the decision taken out there. And it was also decided that VP Malik, who was in the MO directorate, would travel to those days, these video conferences, Zoom things and all were not there.
Yes,
Communication
yes.
was quite primitive. And they said VP Malik would fly, take an aircraft and fly to Agra and brief the troops and the para brigade and get to tell them what the directions are, to convey the directions of the government of India. And
So
also, that
sorry,
meeting,
go ahead.
the High Commissioner of India and Mole, obviously because in Delhi, was also present in this meeting which took place to also give his input about Maldives. Yeah, tell me.
Right. So, so it's interesting that we had limited information or intelligence at that time about the operation that's going on. So we had a broad set of objectives, and then we had a primary plan, and then a backup plan, and a backup plan to it, and that's how we were sort of So it's sort
Yeah,
of interesting that with that limited knowledge, we're operating within that framework, but we
absolutely.
don't have like a specified game plan at this point in time. And this is
Yeah,
11:30 a.m.
yeah.
on November 3rd, 1988.
This is at the operation level. This is the decision taken
Yes.
of the government to go ahead. The detailed planning has not happened now, and it actually
Okay.
because the communications, the army, the air force, and all those things, free services involved. Therefore, kind of integration, jointmanship, and all, which has improved a lot in these 35 years.
Yeah.
So everyone in like planning in their own thing, but the mission was, of course, to go to Male, rescue the president, and get hold of these. That was the broad objective for everyone. That everyone knew, but how to do it, how to
Okay.
do it, that was the issue which is going to happen.
Okay.
So now, I mean, let's say as to what was the activities in Agra, then what happened. When this was going on, then someone in
Before
between
that,
met.
so one question over here. The
Yeah.
operation was named Operation Cactus. When
Yes.
was this named Operation Cactus, and who came up with the name Cactus, and why Cactus? That's a I'm just
See, it is
always
just
wondered about it.
It is just a name. It was done at this meeting. After this meeting, the MO directorate did it. The military
Okay.
operations directorate is the driving force in the army headquarters. I've also served there as a major general in the this. And if you recall, the 71 Bangladesh operation was Cactus Lily. That was
Oh
named
yeah.
Cactus.
Okay. Yes.
So I mean,
Yes.
it's just a name, and the name, there's nothing in the name.
Okay.
Like you have the tornadoes that you name them differently. It is just that it is a kind of a for some temporary kind of a classification to that everyone doesn't know what's happening. That cactus, cactus,
Hmm.
cactus. So it is just like that.
Okay.
There's nothing in the name at all. So it was
Okay.
decided that at that time it was named as Op Cactus in this meeting. Once the meeting ended, the DGM said, "Okay, Op Cactus is the name. This is it, and go ahead." And that's how it happened.
Okay.
Now, in the para brigade in Agra, basically, if you look at the Orbat, they had three battalions. There were three para, six para, and seven para, and of course the artillery regiment and all the supporting units. The para brigade is an independent brigade. It has all supporting arms like artillery, signals, engineers, EME, ordnance, this, and now they also have air defense. Earlier at that time they didn't have, now they have. So they have everything, and they have three airborne battalions and artillery regiment. They had airborne artillery regiment. That's what they had.
Can you elaborate on this a little more? Like, what is the difference between a regular infantry brigade versus a para brigade, and that's all? So that we have more idea about the capabilities of a para brigade versus an infantry brigade.
Yeah. See, that itself is a very big, will be a big
Okay.
subject actually.
Okay.
But the role basically of an airborne brigade primarily, it's an infantry brigade only. Only thing
Hmm.
is that it can be transported by air. It
Okay.
can be transported over long distances. It can be put in areas behind the enemy. It can be put on the flank of the enemy. It can be put anywhere because it can move with all its elements by air. And
Ah, I see. Okay.
and they can jump if they have a DZ. They can land if there's an airfield with all the paraphernalia. A normal infantry brigade does not have all the support elements and possibly is not geared to be able to, it can't be dropped.
Yep.
It cannot be
Makes sense.
parachuted. You
So
can
it
land
has to
somebody.
operate through land only, and so it has to go through land, so it cannot go behind enemy lines or on the flanks
Yeah.
or anything. It
Or
has to go through that. So that's
yeah,
the difference. Okay.
or possibly a force like this, an airborne force, goes first, captures an airfield or two airfields or something, and the
Hmm.
rest of the infantry then can be transported there and landed.
Ah, I see. So it can be like an advanced force that captures
They
that
captures
important
that
point
by
and then
jumping from
creates
the air,
advantage.
capturing it or
Yeah, yeah.
something or whatever, and then the rest of the force goes there.
I see.
So
Thank you
that
for
is,
that context. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's a
That's
little
helpful.
difference, between that. So their context, that role is vertical envelopment. There's a term used, vertical envelopment means you go envelop the enemy from behind, from the flank, from there. That is the basic role of airborne forces, or special forces like that.
Okay.
So now, what happened when this thing happened? This big national kind of an objective came up. Six at that time of there was also some internal security threats which had come up. There are two
Yeah.
very major army installations in Agra. One is the Central Ordnance Depot, and one is the base workshop. They're very critical, both institutions, both installations, military
Yep.
support installations. And well before this October, about a month, 2 months earlier, there was a kind of an internal security threat which was assessed against these two installations. And
Okay.
there were two companies of six para. Normal battalion has four companies, fighting company, the support company, and all. Out of these
Right.
four companies, two companies of six para were deployed at COD and 509. So six para had only two companies.
Okay.
Seven para was out of Agra. They were in a place called Sarmatra, which is nearly about 150 kilometers away in Rajasthan, where they gone for the exercise and field firing and things like that.
Okay.
Three, three para was in Agra. The brigade commander was Brigadier Bulsara, and
Hmm.
CO of six para was Colonel Joshi, a bright officer who had been, done staff college and things like that, and a very kind of a communicative and a not very small officer. The CEO of three para was Colonel Kanhaiya Lal Sharma, decorated officer, Shaurya Chakra, but down to earth, who was he used to do meditation every day.
Oh,
He
wow.
was a brahmachari. He would never eat in the officer's mess. He used to make his own food without any
Wow.
lesson. This he was like
Interesting.
General Hanoot Singh. If you've heard General Hanoot Singh,
Yes, I have.
he
I
was
was
the
making the same connection while you were saying that he was
he used to
brahmachari and
pray in
everything.
the morning. He used to pray in the evening. He used to meditate, and when he was meditating, no one could disturb him. So
Hmm.
these were the personalities out there were there, and so what happened that what I came into the picture is that at around 10:30 or quarter to 11, I don't remember the time exactly. I was sitting in the adjutant's chair of three para battalion,
Yep.
And from the brigade headquarters, nowadays it's a GSO 1, those days there used to be a brigade major. He was the
BM.
key staff officer in the brigade.
Yep.
So I got a call from the brigade major, that where is your CO? There were no mobiles those days.
Right.
So my CO, Colonel Kanhaiyalal KL Sharma, he had taken his jonga and he had gone somewhere away. I didn't know where. He had that habit to travel to look for new exercise areas and training areas. He used to keep going and looking for areas where to exercise, where to train, realistic areas. And he was out. I had no communication. So I
Mm.
told him that, sir, he has gone. I have no communication. He said, when will he come back? I said, he's gone in the morning. He was here in the office. After that, he has left. Maybe an hour, 2 hours, he'll be back. Then again, half an hour, I got another call urgently. Is he back? I said, no, he's not back. Then 5 minutes later, I got another call again, and two, three calls I got quickly.
Mm.
That okay, there is going to be. We want you to prepare for a kind of a prepare one, for a kind of an exercise, and you ready and mobilize one this. And so I asked, then do I prepare ammunition also? What is this exercise about for this? Or do I prepare my
Right.
ammunition also? So I was told, I said, training ammunition. We have two types of ammunition. One is training ammunition. One is your first line ammunition. I said, training or first line? He said, first line. Then I asked that, shall I break the seals of the ammunition boxes? Because, they're sealed. So shall we break the seals? He said, no, no, wait for that. So what came
Okay.
to my mind was that we were having the brigade commander's annual ADAM inspection just 2 days ahead. And the brigade
Ah.
commander, Brigadier Balsara, was a great soldier. So I thought maybe they want to mobilize us as a
Mm.
test. So it's a
Okay.
test exercise. So you mobilize, okay, mobilize the battalion and go. Because no
Right.
information given to me. So I said, I ordered, okay, get ready, guys. Maybe I said this only part of the inspection. Maybe, get ready, mobilize this, that. And that
Mm.
was quite late about. And soon after, the CO came in and he went to the brigade headquarters.
Mm.
Then it was around, by that time the meeting had ended there and all those things had happened. And around 12:30, possibly, I don't remember, could be 12:15 or 12:30, I got a call from my CO, from the brigade headquarters, telling me, again, not giving me anything about the operation or something, that get Alpha Company ready and you take, because the company commander of Alpha Company was on leave. So he
Ah.
told
Okay.
me that you take Alpha Company, get ready, get muster everyone, everything, all the weapons, and get ready to move. That's what he said. Get ready to move for operations.
So you still don't think that an actual operation is happening? You're still thinking that, oh, this might be a part of that
Then we
inspection
have
that's
to.
happening
No,
today.
when the CEO said, then I said that maybe Sri Lanka is going on. Just something could be in
Okay.
Sri Lanka. Something could be happening in Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
We were, those days the TV was not so common. We were not looking in news, and possibly in the news something had already come. I think some news, I believe, BBC or somewhere, that
Hmm.
there had been a coup in Maldives, but we were unaware of that.
Okay.
So that is how the situation was. So I got, then left my chair and quickly passed order to the JCOs and all, get ready and muster and all. That process started. Take out the ammunition, this
Right.
packs, put tools, all those things, digging tools. The paraphernalia of the army that started moving. And so the initial, because the force levels were not known exactly what is there in Maldives. So
Yeah.
initially, what was there, that one company will go, then they said two companies will go of six para, two companies will be enough. And then they added another company. They said, because they had only two companies were committed somewhere else. So they
Yep.
said, okay, three companies. We decided three companies will go. So three para, I was put under command, CO6 para.
Ah, okay.
So six para went in with three companies, two of its own, and one is Alpha company of three para, which I was commanding.
So, so just for context, one company is around 120 troops, so a
Yeah,
total
it is
of
120.
360 to 400.
No, but physically, actually on ground, because people are on leave, people are some on sick bed,
Okay.
so but 15-20% are always on leave.
Yep.
If you get a company strength of 70, or it's a very good strength. And then the people
Ah,
are on
okay.
duties, you are in peacetime. Peacetime, they are duties because you are in a peacetime this. So that was the
Right. Right.
biggest lesson that we learned, at the highest level, that operational readiness, the context of operational readiness. So people are on duties. There's some on guard duties. There's someone on some other places. Someone are in with heavy load somewhere. So if you short notice, if you really, if you just one second, yeah, at a
Sure.
short
Sure.
notice you pick up barely 60 to 70 people.
Hmm.
Because it's a
Okay.
quick notice. Just you got up and all, just
Right.
got out of bed. People are out. Someone may have just gone to the market to buy bananas. So he may not fetch
Yeah.
them in time. You never know.
Right. Yes.
So it happens.
Absolutely
So
right. Yeah.
strength how
Okay.
it was. And the strength doesn't
So.
matter. As long as your key elements are there, your firepower is there, it's okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So the total strength of soldiers that went into for the operation cactus would be around like 210, 220.
Yeah,
Is that a fair number?
and they were initially, that is the first wave. We are talking on the phase one. We are talking on the spearhead. We talk of this as the spearhead. So
Yeah,
the
yeah.
spearhead would be this only about 200 to 250 maybe,
Okay.
including the command element, attack headquarters, and all of that. And then they build up. The para brigade then build up, and build up continued after that, and the whole brigade built up
I
soon after
see.
that. But there was no need for the additional strength later on. It was realized that the
Okay.
opposition was not so there. So this is the situation which was happening with me. And at about 14:30, with my company, we got into vehicles and we reached the airfield.
Yeah.
So we'll take this part of the story. That is my company going there at about 2:30. Meanwhile, since 6 para was the initially tasked battalion and they were ready, so their two companies reached there about, I think, about 2 hours ahead of us. We reached at 2:30. They must have reached at 1:30, about an hour and a half. They reached before us.
Okay.
Meanwhile, if we take up the story from Army headquarters, Brigadier VP Malik was to come here, had been tasked. There was an aircraft placed for him in Palam and he drove. And what happened at that stage when he's getting coming out of the ops room? He requested the foreign secretary that since the high commissioner is here and he's the one who knows Gayoom, he's the one who knows the ministers, he's the one who knows everyone. If you permit, can I take him with me to Agra to brief the people as to what is there? We don't even have maps and things like that.
All right. Makes sense.
So he said, yes, take him. So Malik took AK Banerjee with him into this aircraft at Palam, flew to Agra, and they went to the airbase. So
So you
this is
didn't even have maps at that point in time. You didn't even have maps of the Maldives, of
so
Malay,
what.
or any of those
Yeah,
things.
what happened was that people went to look at in the bookstores to look at Maldives tourist maps
Okay.
and things like that.
I mean,
And,
Jugaad, right?
yeah, and I have photocopies of those which we can see now or later on if you want. You can just see.
Yeah, I can
Just
show
see
that. Yeah.
these two. These are kind of maps which were given, and some of them were given from a book which was brought by the High Commissioner. The High Commissioner had a small book, and that were photocopied quickly. That's why you see these. These are original maps, and if you see this at the right bottom, you see the annotation here. This annotation has been done by me by hand. This is
Oh
the map of
wow.
Malay. This is the map of Malay that we went into the ops for with.
Hmm.
And the next map, you go to the next one. Mm,
This is the map, right? This is the next map.
the previous one. Yeah, this is another one. This is a more detailed one. Then there's one of Hulule airfield.
Oh, maybe I didn't download that.
Okay, all right, doesn't matter. It's all right. So
Okay, let
that's all
let me
right.
capture that. Sorry.
It's all right. Yeah, that's all right. Okay, fine.
So,
Forget it. So these are the kind of maps that we went in with. Some were from the High Commissioner's personal kind of a book that he had. I think.
so that was the photocopy of the actual map that you got at that time, and those are the
No,
notes that
this
you
is the actual
made.
map. This is the actual
Actual map.
photocopy which I had with me. I had in my
Wow,
hand. When I reached, I was given. And I was given it
nice.
at the airfield when I reached. I was given these maps, and then I came to know we're going to Maldives.
Oh, I see.
At
So,
2:30
what was
p.m., I knew that okay, we are going to Maldives, and then we learned the context that the president has been is under threat, and we are going there to rescue the president of this, and how far it is, 3,000 plus kilometers, and things like that. Now, meanwhile,
so?
if we look at the Air Force situation, if you want, we will look at that as to what is happening with the Air Headquarters, Air Force station there in Agra. The Agra has the transport fleets out there. They have AN-32, they have IL-76s, of course. They have two
Yep.
squadrons. And so they got a warning earlier because while the discussions were going on, whether NSC should go in, which are the troops we should use, what should happen at the context, it was known that the Air Force has to transport whoever is assigned this task. Whoever is
Yep.
assigned the task, Air Force to transport. So they got a message. I believe they saw at about 8:30 or 9, they got a message to get ready 3 IL-76 aircraft.
8:39 at night.
in the
Or
morning,
in the
very
morning? In
in
Okay,
the
so they
morning.
already got a message right early in the morning. Okay,
The coup attempt had started at 4:30 a.m. in
4:30. Yeah, yeah.
Maldives.
Right, right.
6:30, the calls and all came here to the Indian Foreign Ministry and to various people. And
Mm-hmm.
the meeting started at 9. So just about at that time when it was said that this is a thing, the Air Force said to get three aircraft ready.
Okay,
Three IL-76s were got ready at 3 hours notice. They were to
okay,
be told to be at 3 hours notice to fly out. And where exactly was not known, and Trivandrum or something they were told. That Trivandrum and this, and later on, then they were put on 1 hour's notice. And then they were told that either we will go from Agra, Trivandrum, Malay, or Agra, Malay, direct.
okay,
You know,
okay,
the time difference was only 10 minutes.
okay.
We go Trivandrum, then Malay, and this 10 minutes. So it has still not been decided till about 12, when they got this message in the morning at about 8:30 or this, that whether they'll go this way, because there are major issues of, in a peacetime situation, of ATC, air traffic control. The
Uh-huh. Okay,
issues of customs, issues of this, because this was an operation which had not been declared as a war situation.
okay.
The Air Force could not file Malay as a destination in the official flight plan. The official
Okay.
flight plan, when you share with the ATC, is if they put
Right.
Malay, the customs would have said, please land in Delhi and get yourself searched. So these
I
are the
mean,
kind of bureaucratic
yeah,
things that can happen,
yeah, that's the thing, right?
because it's a
When you think
peacetime
about an
situation.
operation,
It's
right?
not an
When you think
operation.
of
No
right,
one
when
has
you
been told that we are on war or something or something. So every
right,
department
right.
says, where are you going?
Yeah,
So
every
to fight
department is operating under the assumption that war is not being declared, so we have to follow our SOPs and everything. So you have to sort of think about all those things when you're planning out. Wow, okay, that makes
And
sense.
actually, the Air Force has trained ATC people. Air Force has
Hmm.
trained ATC people who come in case these guys go on strike or something and all. And if it was a bigger natural operation, then they would have taken over the ATCs and route, whichever ATCs came on route, and so they could have done that. But anyway, so that was the issues that the Air Force was having. They had to prepare the aircraft, fuel the aircraft, the Bowsers, tankers, everything, and then more aircraft were flying in from Eastern Command, because
Hmm. Okay.
finally the plan was in the next waves, we didn't know what the situation is. The whole brigade may have to go. So AIM
Hmm.
32s were coming in. So the airfield was getting crowded and everyone had to be fueled. And so there was a lot of chaos there, which is happening on the Air Force side. So the plan
I
initially, what was done by about 2:30, then it was very clear that, okay, we are heading for Mali directly.
okay.
And
So
we will try to, yeah, please.
So here's what I wanted to ask you over here. So now at 2:30 when you reach the airfield, that's when you first come to know that okay, we are going to a live operation in the
Yeah.
Maldives and we do not have enough information. Maps are
Yeah.
also just some basic maps have been provided. As a soldier, what
Mhm.
is the first thing that comes to your mind when you're about to enter a combat zone? What was the first thing that came to your mind at that time?
See, the situation was not combat like at that time. I mean, you are
Okay.
going in and you're getting into there's so much on your mind, so much to do. You're getting your troops, checking their loads. Are they carrying everything? It is there. Then orders started. Okay, start loading the aircraft. Your mind is so occupied with the things, with your drills and things, what to do, see everything's okay, that you barely think of the risks and the dangers which are involved.
Okay.
When you
Got it.
get
So you're just
respect,
going through the motions at that time.
yeah, if we had got a lot of free time, we would have thought, "Ori, what's happening? Where are we going? What will happen?" No, there was no time for
Right.
that. So at
Okay.
about 2:30, the plan which emerged was that, okay, first wave, two IL-76 aircraft will go.
Hmm.
In the first, and the troops who will go in these two IL-76 will be six para with two companies,
Yep.
Alpha company of three para, the brigade TAC headquarters, the small team, the commander, the BM, radio set, radio operator, a little bit for 5-8 people,
Right.
and a platoon of engineers, 411 engineers, one platoon of engineers would go with us, and
Hmm.
a little bit of our logistic load, which whatever could be loaded.
Hmm.
And in the third aircraft, which would come in the next, in a later wave after we had landed and things were okay, would bring a troop of guns, 17
Hmm.
parafield guns. And it'll bring up our fighting echelons. That is, you have the first reinforcement echelons of material, equipment, thing like that. F echelon will come and some logistic loads will come. So that was the plan for these first. three aircraft, and it was then decided that they will fly straight for Malé. It was still not clear. It was still not clear whether the airfield is occupied or not occupied.
Wow.
So
That has just
therefore,
blown my, yeah, that fact just blows my mind, that we are sort of going into working in the dark. We don't know if
yeah,
the airfield is in our under control or not, and we may have to jump. All of that is, we're just
yeah,
going playing it by the air at that time.
yeah. And so, what we were carrying at that time, there were about 70 parachutes which were also loaded in these two aircraft.
Yeah.
And these are special two-stage parachutes which you can use for jumping, the D5 parachutes.
Okay.
The D5 parachutes, when you're carrying that parachute, with a normal parachute, you can carry any weapon that you want, maybe. With these, you can't carry anything but your carbine because, it's a two-stage parachute and it can't protrude up your shoulder, above your shoulder and below your, knee. It can get entangled in the parachute, there may be casualties. So you can get very limited weapons with you, just the carbine, short-range carbine.
Oh,
You
okay.
can carry with that. So those parachutes were loaded, and would there be an eventuality that we were not able to land and we had to go to Trivandrum? Then we would get off. The aircraft would be modified. 70 people then would go and jump
Oh,
in a
okay.
football field which was there in Mali.
Yeah.
That was
Okay.
considered to be a better option than Hulule itself, because
Okay.
Hulule, I mean, you don't have the thing. It was a very narrow strip. It's a very
Right.
narrow, and with corals on both sides, and it is just that, nothing else. Uh,
Let me just find that
let me.
Hulle for you.
Yeah, the third one. Anyway, I mean, I think it can.
I'll just get it. There is Male, and right next to Male, this is Hulhule Island over here, the neighborhood one. It where it did this long strip,
No,
right?
no, it looks like that. It's all coral. The actual land is very narrow. This is not that big an island. It is
Oh, I
just
see.
coral and water on the sides. It is just a strip, very narrow, barely 200 meters wide. Not even
Okay.
200. It's a very narrow thing. I had a picture here. Maybe, I mean, I could just show it on a slide. I had, taken these and anyway, it doesn't matter. So that
Yeah.
was the
So it's
situation.
it's like a very very narrow strip. So
No,
it was
it
not
is,
preferable to
yeah,
drop over there.
yeah.
Male football field would have been a prime uh,
Because
place where
you,
we were not
you could
to
have
land.
gone on to buildings maybe here, there, and somewhere, but still,
Right. Right. Right.
you would be on terra firma rather than going into the coral and into the sea.
Yes. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So you are in the now you are in the air. You are planning to land at the airfield in Hulhule
Yeah.
Island, which is right next to Male.
Yeah. So we were talking about the thing that, from the airport, you said the brigade commander. And now what happened when we took off, before we took off, that is what the High Commissioner tells that Brigadier VP Malik, who said that I am going with them. I'll be going with them, landing them, and then when the aircraft come out, the aircraft was just to drop us and come back. I'll be coming
Mm.
back with them. Why don't you come?
Okay.
So the High Commissioner says he was told in Agra that you come with us.
Okay.
And he said that you please ask the MEA. So possibly someone asked the MEA then, and they said, yes, you are the High Commissioner. When thing is going on, your position is in Mali itself. What are you doing here?
Mm. Right. Right. It makes
So
sense.
you better go with them. So there was a toothpaste and things like that which you procured for him quickly, and so that he could go. Yeah. So he was also in the aircraft.
Oh, okay.
Because see, the issue was, it was a diplomatic issue going to be. The president was going to be rescued, and then the high commissioner is the best man to be there to
Yes.
to handle the thing, because the embassy staff was at risk. You didn't know what is going to happen.
Yeah.
Now the doubt about the airfield being held or not held. It was understood that there are some NSS people who are there at the airfield holding it.
Oh.
Now it was understood that they are loyal to the president, but it could have been a trap. It could have been that the people let these guys come. It could
Right.
have been
Okay.
anything. You're not sure. So therefore, there was a code word which was kind of passed. That this is the code word. That the people
Oh,
who
okay.
are there, this is the code word that will be given for you. If that code word is given, means the runway is clear.
Can you
If that
share
code
that
word,
word with us, or is that classified?
no, no, it is the name was Hudia.
Hudia. Okay.
Hulule, Hulule, Hu, India Dia, Hudia, Hudia. I mean,
Hulhule
I
ka Hu or
I
India ka
could see
Dia.
Hudia like
Okay.
that. The name was just
Hmm.
Hudia. That was
Hudia.
it. Anyway,
Okay.
so in the way when we were flying, you were asked what are the things what are happening. We had not even opened our ammunition and all, like I told you. We had just come like
Hmm.
that. Now, as per flying restrictions, you cannot distribute ammunition. You cannot do anything in the aircraft. You cannot take primed ammunition when you're flying in a transport aircraft.
Hmm.
But we had no option that we primed hand grenades also while flying. And the
Oh, okay.
prime grenade can be a risky thing. You're putting an igniter into the grenade and you're doing it. And I called my platoon commanders turn by turn. My 2IC was Captain R.D. Punekar, and I had three very good JCOs with me. So I briefed them turn by turn. Okay, this is what we expect. This is what we expect on these maps that I had with
Hmm.
me. I
Hmm.
just
Yeah. Just mark
uh,
those.
on these maps, I briefed them. Now, another issue which is very important with the Air Force PGIs 2-3 were traveling with us is that, when the aircraft land, they will not switch off, they will not reduce their power because their aim was, moment they get off, they'll fly off,
Ah.
to reduce the risk and all. So they told us that if you get out, there's a rear ramp from where you get out,
Hmm.
rear ramp in the aircraft. If
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
get,
Yep.
after it lands, if you go out, you will get blown away by it's a very powerful aircraft. It's got those four big huge jet engines that you will
Yep.
get blown away with that. So the thing was that you had to get out and then turn towards the head of the aircraft, towards the nose of the aircraft.
Okay.
Quickly turn, you're carrying a load, you're carrying a rucksacks, carrying of weapons, you're loaded with about 30 kgs of load and everything. So moment you come up, don't go behind. From the ramp, just stick to the sides of the aircraft, come towards the nose. So I had to brief that all to these people because normally when we go for a
Wow.
jump, you go out like that. So there's a briefing done, this whatever we could do best in the time, flying time. So 6 o'clock actually in the evening, 4:30 in the 4 o'clock in the evening, the loading has started.
Okay.
By 5:30, the aircraft were loaded and ready. 6 p.m. approximately, we took off
Okay.
from Agra. 6 p.m. we took off. At
Okay.
9:25 in the night of 3rd November, 9:25, uh, approached Hulule, about just 20 miles from there, and the first aircraft in which the CO of the 44 Squadron, uh, Group Captain Bevur, later on Air Commodore Bevur, was the one. So it gives it sees the friendly one here. And
Hmm.
the response came, Hudia, 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 Hudia. It was so fast and all, he couldn't even clearly understand what it is. But
Okay.
it was, thank God. So he told them, okay, we are approaching, we're just there, that switch on lights. Runway
Okay.
lights were switched on for 10 seconds, just 10 seconds and off.
Ah.
So
Okay.
in that, a new airfield where these pilots had never landed, never been there, and the narrow thing with the sea on the sides and the coral on the sides and all, they so the first one touched down, and then he said, "When I'm touching down, just switch on the lights for another." As it touched down again, they switched off and on,
Okay.
and the
Okay.
both aircraft landed. And then in uh, uh, about another half an hour, the troops had unloaded. The
Okay.
troops had unloaded from there, and the logistic loads were left inside. So the first thing was that we have to secure the airfield, like you said. So we secured the ATC. There were two companies which were to secure. That is my company and Delta company of six. We were to secure the entire airfield, and one company was to go to Mali.
Hmm.
Now, for Mali, you needed boats. So we
Yeah.
married up with these. It was correct. Their field was safe. Unfortunately, like you said, strategically, these people are not very smart. If they
Yep.
just parked one tanker on the runway, we wouldn't have been able to land. They didn't have to do any
Hmm.
action, and they could have got the president, and it would have taken us much more time to come there, and the operation was in jeopardy. But they
Yeah.
possibly didn't think that deep because he was a businessman, Abdullah Lutfi. He thought that no one is
Yeah.
going to come so far. Who will come? I mean, they never thought that another country could respond and
Yeah.
possibly reach there and save the president, from that kind of a thing. So 411 with the guides, they went. There's a Karambia. There's another island nearby, small island. You see, Malé.
Oh,
Hulule is just 2 kilometers from Malé, and Karambia is another one. They went there. They commanded 10 boats and 10, 15 boats and brought them to
okay.
Malé. So in that, then Delta Company, which is commanded by Major R.J. Dillon, a very dear friend of mine. We had gone on a hitchhiking trip over Europe, USA, Canada earlier with furlough, 3 months, and
Oh,
when we were captains, when we were young captains. A good friend.
nice.
We were the company commander of that company, which was to go and rescue. So at about just after midnight, early morning on, now we are on the fourth.
Yep.
They reached Maldives, and I was told by the brigade headquarters, the TAC headquarters, to detach one of my platoons. So I detached my platoon under Captain Punekar, which will
Hmm.
go and make a landing at another spot on Malay as a diversion
Oh,
in case
okay.
they are opposed or something happens. So he's going this side. Colonel Dillon is Major Dillon is taking the company there, and the one platoon is going from the other side, from two sides like this, going like this,
Can I
so that
can I
there is
share my screen and then you can show us on the map on where these things landed? Let me just do that.
a.
All right. So here's where we are. So we this is the whole Holy Island. This is the airstrip over here. You commendate. Obviously,
Yeah.
this bridge wasn't present at that time, so we just
So,
had.
Major Dillon landed on here a little bit on the this is north on the western side.
West. Okay, over here.
There were jetties here. There were jetties here which were known, and we had the NSS guides with them. So he landed somewhere this side here.
Okay.
On the
Mm-hmm.
top of it, you're seeing this small island somewhere there, and
Mm-hmm.
not so far from Hulule, they landed here.
Mm-hmm.
Can you see my cursor? Can you see my cursor?
No, sir, I can't.
You can't see my cursor. All right.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
they landed somewhere, yeah, somewhere where you were saying a little to the east. Come a little to
yeah.
the east in front of Hulule. Yeah,
Okay, over
a
here
little somewhere here. And Adi
hmm
Punekar landed on the other side, below
on
that.
the other side.
Yeah,
Okay.
from here. But from here, we were coming from Hulule. Remember, we were
Right, right,
coming
right.
from Hulule. Yeah, like that and like that. Two places we came, and
Okay.
that is how
Okay.
it happened. Now, meanwhile, a very interesting thing happened. I was on the beach. I deployed my company there, company lesser platoon. One platoon of mine had gone to Malay. The other company were deployed here like this. We were deployed here. What you are seeing now on the left side, on the west side of the Hulule airfield, that is where we
Yeah.
were deployed. You can see
Okay.
that portion, what you're seeing now in the picture of the Hulule
Yeah.
airfield, the left side of the thing, what you're seeing, which is the west. We were all along this line, we were deployed. We were
Yes.
deployed all along this line here. Then we spread
Okay.
around this.
Right.
And I was there somewhere in the middle when at around 11:30, I suddenly saw a black silhouette just gliding in this passage. You see the passage coming from the side and between Malay and Hulule and going this side from
Like
top
this
to bottom, from
from
as I
top to
was
bottom.
right to left. Yeah, from
Okay.
top to bottom. It was
Yeah.
parked here. It was possibly here. There was a harbor. From the harbor, it was coming out like that.
Okay.
Now, I didn't know what it is. It's a ship, totally blackened out. And so I had the radio set. I immediately went to the brigade TAC. The brigade major was on the radio. I said, I can see a black silhouette. There's a ship which is moving out. What is it? Is it enemy? It is friendly. Shall we fire? We shall not fire. What should do? What do we do? So,
Mm-hmm.
because there was a fog of war, nothing had happened. No firing had happened against us or anything at that time. The things that
Yep.
happened out there. So then, after about 5 minutes or 5 or 7 minutes, quickly he came back quickly. He said, "Fire, fire, fire, fire."
Mm.
So I told my troops, "Open fire." But there is that initial inertia because the point is that no one is firing at you. Nothing has happened. So
Right.
then I stood up with my weapon and I opened fire. Then everyone opened fire. Then I took up. There was a very good JCO of mine, Subhadar Anand Singh. I said, 84 RL is a potent weapon that you have, easy weapon, light weapon. It's
Mm-hmm.
an anti-tank
Mm-hmm.
weapon. It can fire anti-tank and high explosive and all, eliminating all kinds of rounds it can fire. So I told him we took that weapon, Anand Singh, to that one person who was holding that 84 RL and me, we ran along the coast downwards. Now, if you look
Okay.
at the picture, along the coast from top to we ran like that and
Mm-hmm.
we fired three shots of that 84 RL.
So
At
RL
the
is a rocket launcher, correct?
It's a rocket launcher, 84
Mm-hmm.
millimeters is the caliber. It has a range for HE of about 1000 meters,
Okay.
1100 meters. So we
Mm-hmm.
didn't know whether it reach, and LMGs and MMGs were firing, but this is the most potent because an LMG small arms won't do much harm to a ship. We
Right.
fired three of these shots running along the coastline. We fell down up one, two, three. The ship moves not so fast. It just started off, you know.
Right.
And then the ship went out from here southwards out of the
Hmm.
passage. And we
Okay.
didn't know what happened about that after that. And then later on, we'll come to know what happened about the ship. When we come to that story, then I'll tell you what happened
Okay.
with the fire that happened. Now, so at around after midnight, then Major Dhillon reached. They came. There was some Punekar reached, but Punekar just held there at that jetty where he had landed.
Hmm.
Idea was to hold the jetty, and with guides of NSS were there. The loyal guides who had come to know people from the ATC told them, "Okay, friendly force coming." They guided them to the safe house of the president.
Okay.
Major Dhillon with his team quickly went and they uh, they reached at about 2:15 at 2:15 a.m. on 4th,
Hmm.
early morning 02:15 a.m. They reached and rescued the president and then took him to the NSS headquarters. What had
Okay.
happened was the NSS headquarters was actually under attack, but once they knew that they have landed and the ship escaped, apparently most of the people who had come, they got onto the ship because they knew that there's a foreign. I mean, they saw the aircraft landing, they saw all this
Right. Right.
activity.
Hmm.
So they wanted to escape. And this ship was
Okay.
MV Progress Light. Its name was MV Motor Vessel uh, Progress Light.
Okay.
And in that, they also had some hostages with them. They took, I mean, we learned later, they took some hostages with them. The
Hmm.
hostages included the shipping minister of Maldives, along with his wife, and some other hostages, and of course, Abdullah Lutfi, the
Yep.
mastermind. And with all
Right.
the some people who got away, whatever got onto the ship, most of them managed to board the ship, and they saw that the game is up, and they went. So
Okay.
then, at about 4 a.m. morning, then the brigade commander, Brigadier Bulsara, and the High Commissioner, Mr. Banerjee, they met the president, Mr.
Okay.
Guillaume, in the NSS headquarters. He was safe. I mean, he was shaken. There are lots of pictures of that in the media. And at 4:30, then there was a call from the Prime Minister of India, Mr. Rajiv Gandhi, to the president, and Abdul Guillaume thanked him, a lot. That thank you very much, and he was back in this. And then it so happened that by 11th November, he was again he took oath again as the president of Maldives.
I see.
Now, now, see the next 2 days, then from 4th, 5th, and 6th. My company, we went to Male. There were other two companies in Male, and we carried out house to house searches.
I
The
see.
entire Male, every house we went to, because it was not known how many of these rebels had gone away, how many were still there hiding somewhere. And I remember at around 11 or 12 o'clock when I was patrolling along, I was next to my CO. There were AK-47 shots fired at us.
Oh.
Quickly I told the my CO to take shelter here and all, and we moved. And then after that, those guys thought that they were on a in a somewhere near a tree, and two of them surrendered to us. So we got together about 8-10 of these militants in the searches from for fourth, fifth, and sixth,
Okay.
fourth, fifth, and sixth. The entire this. And meanwhile, on the fourth, that is the next day, the para brigade generally had built up. The balance of three para,
Yeah.
the artillery, and everything was slowly building up at Hulule. Though there
Hmm.
was no need for them to move to Male. Now, this was the picture what happened, but a very important part of this is also the naval operation that happened.
All right.
See, when it was an inter-service operation, initially when it was been discussed whether Navy will take it or the Air Force will take it, who will go ahead, this, that, and all, said everyone is part to it. And so therefore the Navy passed a warning at 09:30 a.m. the same day, around the same time when the Air Force got it. The same
Hmm.
time, there was a naval frigate, old obsolescent frigate, INS Betwa,
Get what? Yep.
At Cochin.
Hmm.
Cochin was the nearest from Maldives.
Yeah.
So this obsolescent ship, which had been bought from UK in the late 50s as an old ship, was now being
Hmm.
used as a cadet training ship.
Okay.
But it was ordered to load up and move quickly.
Right.
So at around at about 4 o'clock in the evening, 4:20 in the evening from Cochin, they sailed
Hmm.
from
Okay.
Maldives. And as they sailed, they were told that your task is. They were told then that there is a ship which has escaped. It has got militants. It's got hostages on it,
Hmm.
and you please, your aim is to intercept that ship. No, they were in a
Ah.
quandary. They were moving out. It's a huge sea. Indian Ocean's a huge sea. You can't find a ship. It's like
Yeah.
looking
Yeah.
for a needle in a haystack. And so
Yes.
they were discussing, thinking that where could that ship have gone? That he can go to East Asia, go to any of the East Asian countries, Indonesia, Malaysia, anywhere, or it
So
could go to Sri Lanka.
yeah. So
Yeah.
how did they know that a ship had already escaped? What are the means for our intelligence or our armed
See,
forces
there
to
was no
identify that a
intelligence.
ship has escaped?
At that time, there was no intelligence with us. It was only the
Okay.
people who were there, the NSS who were there, and the information. We were
Okay.
there with the president, and we had
Okay.
fired at that ship.
Okay. So it
We
is
had,
that ship only.
that ship.
Oh,
Then we had.
okay. Now I'm connecting the dots. Okay. So it's the
See,
ship
it
that you
was that
fired
ship.
at. That's the
You
same ship
can't
that
fire on
escaped.
any ship. It was blackened out, and therefore I didn't have a. I couldn't. You can't fire on any merchant ship. That's why
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
called, and then they checked up because these people had got on board and gone from the ship, and they were people, the NSS and all who were surviving, the guys who were guiding us and all. They said, "ये ship पे चढ़ के गए हैं."
So it's interesting that because it's a good thing that you were not able to damage that ship and that ship didn't sink because it had a lot of hostages as well. So it sort of like turned out to be a good
But the
thing at
ship
the
was
end.
damaged, which we learned
It
later.
was it
We
was
learned
damaged.
later.
Okay, it didn't
But
sink
somewhat.
though, so that's a good thing. Okay, okay,
It's a very interesting story. It's the first-hand account now. Anyway,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
uh, so what happened is that so Betwa is sailing now, thinking that where could the ship have gone? They could come to
yeah.
Sri Lanka, they can go
Hmm.
to the southeast, and they were told by the naval headquarters that the speed is going to be about 9 to 10 knots. That is
Hmm.
the speed that they will have, and they will, go there and this that, and they were totally blind actually, sailing towards
Is
Malay.
that
Yeah,
so?
tell me.
Sorry, is that a good speed or is that a bad speed or average speed? You
No, see,
said 90 knots,
it is a small MV. It's a motor
right?
vessel.
Right.
10 knots comes to about 20 kilometers.
Oh, okay. So it's not a
So
very
it's
fast
no,
ship.
no, very good. But if you look at ships, which travel, if you 24 hours you travel at 20 kilometers an hour, so
You
you
can
make
cover a lot of distance. Yes.
180 kilometers in a day. But normal ships, modern ships, they travel at 20 knots, 25 knots, 20. So it was an old
Okay.
ship. Someone, evidently Abdullah Lutfi had hired this ship
Okay.
from Sri
Got
Lanka
it.
or somewhere, put these mercenaries on top and come. So it was not a top of the line ship. It was some old
Hmm.
vessel it
Right. Right.
was. Yeah. So then INS Betwa is, you can see sailing, blindly. 4:20, it is sailing towards Malay. The task is where the hell they're going to find
Right.
the progress light of the ship and all. At about 9:30 in the night on the 4th, 9:30 p.m. in the night,
The next day.
they
Okay.
on the radar they saw a helicopter.
Hmm.
So, and soon they came across, this was a helicopter. There are very few navies who embark helicopters on the ships. The Indian Navy is
Hmm.
one, and then, of course, the UK, the French, the Russians, the Americans, the Chinese, and all. And they came into radio contact with the British US, with the US naval ship.
Hmm.
There was this US naval ship which was there in that area, maybe because they have the interest, they have the Navy going everywhere. When they asked him, he gave some indication that yes, there has been a ship there. It could be Progress Light. It could be
Hmm.
that ship because this
Okay.
it was just by information, by chance. And
Hmm.
they also got information that possibly it was in the open seas. See, normally shipping follows shipping lanes.
Yes.
Shipping lanes are like roads, highways,
Right.
and
Right.
they're very busy. If you look at a shipping line, they ship after ship after ship after ship going in that line. They go in
Hmm.
those lines generally. So they said he was in the open sea, possibly away from one of these lines and things like that. That's how he got, possibly spotted with them.
Okay.
Also, there's another thing which says that when the IL-38s came in the morning, the IL
Hmm.
Illusion, they saw this one ship which was not in any lane and going on its own.
Hmm.
So they got the corroboration from the IL-38, that is our own naval reconnaissance, maritime reconnaissance aircraft, and from
Hmm.
these. And so the short of it that on fourth night they got clearer, more indication that okay, this ship is generally in that area. And fifth morning, early morning, at about they got into contact with they saw this, spotted this ship at about
Okay.
early morning on the 5th,
Hmm.
about 3 or
Okay.
4 a.m. They thought in the dark and they followed the ship, started following the ship, and as it became a little light, they realized that this is progress light.
Okay.
Meanwhile, Betwa was an old ship, limited. They had one Chetak helicopter embarked on that, not a very
Uh-huh.
reliable helicopter there.
Hmm.
INS Godavari was returning after 1 month's cruise in Australia and the Southeast East Asian countries and things like that. So the
Okay.
naval headquarters ordered Godavari that you pick up. I mean, this is the story from the naval side, that you pick up Maldivian negotiators from Sri Lanka.
Oh, okay.
So possibly the Maldivian High Commission or the Indian High Commission had a role in that. And as the Godavari passed, they have a Sea King on board. Whether Sea King went and picked up these 2, 3 guys and brought them on the ship. This was around 10 in the morning. On the 5th. By the late afternoon, Godavari, then they were in communication, Betwa and Godavari, they were
Right,
in
right.
communication. So they matched up with the Betwa and they started following the progress light, the
Hmm.
ship they started following. The orders
Right.
given to them from the naval headquarters was that their hostages on a boat, like you said, that hostages are on board. So you stay close to them, negotiate with them, and try to get them to surrender. So this
Okay.
negotiation started, but those guys were very tough cookies. Those PLOT guys, they're very tough guys. They were playing with life and death every day. They
Right.
started threatening. They said, "We will kill your hostages if you come near." Now it is
Yep.
a catch-22 situation. They say, "We'll kill the hostages." Now by the night they said that negotiations, nothing is happening. They are neither stopping nor surrendering. They are threatening. They'll kill the. Then the naval headquarters made it very clear, and ship was clearly headed for Colombo.
Hmm.
Then they made it a very clear thing. They told that they cannot get into Colombo. If they get into Colombo, the situation will go out of hand. You have to stop them from getting into Colombo.
Hmm.
Now, what played in our hand, which now I want to link up, that the 3 shots that we had fired, the 3 shots we had
Oh.
fired,
Okay.
when the master of the ship was brought back to Maldives and was interrogated by the intelligence officer of the para brigade, the one Captain Janjua, says a very bright guy. He from the NDA, he was a 5, 6 star torch holder. When he interrogated him, it came out that one of the shots rocket we had fired, it ricocheted from the water. It ricocheted like this from the water and hit the critical system of the ship steering thing, and it was very difficult for him, so he kept going in the open sea.
Ah,
Just
that's
because
why it was going off. Okay, got it.
maybe
Yeah.
it was that is what it was possibly, and secondly, the speed which had been assessed at about 9 to 10 knots, he was only making 5 knots.
Ah, okay.
I mean, whatever happened, I don't know technically was it right or wrong, but he was making
Hmm.
only 5 knots, not even 10 knots, because had he been making 10 knots, he'd have reached Colombo much earlier.
Hmm.
You're going at half the speed. So these ships are
Hmm.
tagging him and trying to ding him. And when naval headquarters became very clear about it, that you cannot uh, you cannot let him go into Colombo. Now the orders are very clear for the
What was the sorry? What was the reason for that? Say, for instance, if this ship had reached Sri
no.
Lanka,
See, it
what would
reached
have
Sri
happened
Lanka
then?
because the people on board were Sri Lankans. They were Tamilians,
So
and then
so they
the
would
other
have just
thing,
dissipated and
hostages
ran away.
becomes an
Right, right.
international issue. Then totally, he has
Oh,
immunity. Abdullah Lutfi may be having a Sri Lankan visa or a passport or whatever, and the other people
ah,
and all. So to avoid the situation, it's a very complicated diplomatic situation. You will not be able to get hold of them. Then Maldives will say, "कि आपने पकड़ भी लिया," and then you let them go. You caught these
right,
guys,
right, right.
let them go. So this. So sixth early morning, after midnight, the naval headquarters told them, because now they're going closer to Colombo, so
Yeah.
to Sri Lanka. They say that no, they can't go. We have to stop them from going to. Then the captain, the ROE, the rules of engagement and all had not been decided, because it is a operation which is going like the coming from Australia thing. He took the initiative, and that then he fired his 57 guns
Oh,
at the
okay.
ship. But it was dark at that time. Early morning, it was dark. And these are 57 is not so big, but the ship continued. They hit some shells, hit the thing, but there was not much effect on that, on the ship.
Yeah, but the hostages were still there in the ship.
They
So
were there, obviously.
how can we
No,
fire at the ship then?
no, but the hostages are not standing all around the ship. You can hit the vulnerable places in the ship. You can
Oh,
hit it
okay.
here.
So it was like
It's a
a
big thing. The ship is,
targeted fire at a certain.
yeah, it's
Okay.
a big thing. So they were trying to do that. When
Okay.
nothing happened, then at about, there's not much effect. Then at 4:30, Betwa also fired its own, 54 mm's, and they fired 57 mm's, and a small fire started on the ship.
Ah. Okay.
Progress light. A small fire started in this, but still they doused the fire. They doused the fire.
Mm-hmm.
Then at about 5:50, 5:50, then what this, because this was a modern frigate, this was a modern, they fired an anti-aircraft gun at the ship, and it
Uh-huh.
fired 1,000 rounds per minute. He
Oh,
fired a
oh yeah.
big burst, and evidently there was these some of them who were on the deck. They were casualties on these people. Not
Mm-hmm.
possibly the hostages were locked up inside somewhere. And
Uh-huh.
they also at daylight they sent out the helicopter to have a look and all. So evidently they were not on the deck. The
Hmm.
hostages, they locked them inside somewhere, in some
Right.
something. And so when he fired, there was a bigger fire which started after this thing a little bit, and there were some
Mm-hmm.
casualties which happened, but still the ship kept sailing.
Mm-hmm.
Then then after that, when this didn't happen, then at about 7:15, when it was a daytime, still all this fire, these guys were so tough, they're still going on to Colombo. They were not
Wow.
surrendering. They did not
Yeah.
surrender. They carried on towards Colombo. They kept, they thought that they will reach. Maybe there was someone there who was guiding them, and we don't know, wanted them to
Mm-hmm.
come back, the shipping company. At 7:15, then Betwa was an old class ship. No, he had the 4.5 inch heavy gun.
Right. Right.
He fired. It was daytime then, very clear visibility. He fired. It's an old ship. His night firing capability is limited. So in daytime, 7 o'clock daytime, he fired his 4.5 inch gun, and there was a big fire which came up in the middle of the ship, and there was total chaos out there. There, in the middle there was a fire. The power went off. The ship power went off, and there was
Yeah.
chaos. And soon after, then in about an hour's time, we got the radio signal from the this that we are surrendering
Uh,
from
because
the
now
rebels.
they had no option left. It was either just like you sink over there, or you just give up.
Yeah.
They
So
had like no hope remaining of being able
yeah,
to reach Colombo at that point of time,
yeah.
probably.
So
Okay.
they at that stage realized that okay, let's surrender, because otherwise they were threatening they will kill your hostages. When they saw that these guys are not going, they're saying that you go away, they will kill them. But since the
Hmm.
ships didn't leave them, they kept trying. They said that they're not going to go away, whatever happened. So they kind of
Right. Right.
so gave way. So then with that fire was on, then a party boarded and they evacuated. They told them to separate, that the hostages to be in one side of the fire. Luckily, the fire was in the middle and the terrorists on one side. So they evacuated the hostages first, then they evacuated the terrorists, and there were a number of dead bodies on the deck, which were possibly caused by the anti-aircraft gun which had been fired earlier.
Yeah.
And so after that, then uh, then early morning next day. Now this is all happening on the sixth morning. No, sixth
Yeah.
morning. All this is happening 8 a.m. and 9.
Hmm.
The progress light is evacuated. A team that tried to kind of in the night on the 6th, they tried to refurbish it, see if we can retrieve the ship or something. A naval team, these guys in a boat went, the naval guys.
Hmm.
But it was getting dark. They came back. They said that it was very difficult, because possibly they also had a fear that the ship has been scuttled. They deliberately
Hmm.
engine room where the people have done something, before they were
Ah.
evacuated from there. The rebels and
Okay.
all. So early morning on the 7th at about 5:30, progress light sank.
Oh.
It hit the bottom of the sea.
Okay.
It sank. And then Betwa, meanwhile, INS Deepak is a tanker that had also been ordered to sail, and Betwa refueled. Because Betwa had been
Hmm.
sailing 3-4 days, refueled,
Yeah.
and then Betwa reached on these. Which date did they reach? Let me see. 9th November.
Okay.
7th they sank. It was somewhere near Colombo, and then they came, and 9th, they, not that 9th, possibly they were on the outside. They were told to wait, because there was a ceremonial handover of Abdullah Lutfi, who was the prime suspect, and some of his all these people who have been captured, who were
Hmm.
alive still. That is these PLOT people, some other hostages, the shipping minister, and all. And I was present there at that dock when the ship came in. The whole of Malay was out there, and they wanted to lynch all these guys. But the Indian
Yeah.
army, like always, like we did in Bangladesh, we protected them
Yes.
and we took them
Yes.
into our custody, and we did not hand them over to the. At that time, we said that you have a proper this and all. So
Yeah.
then we three, my company, I stayed on there for another about a week, and after that we were evacuated. Six para left one company there for 1 year exactly. One full year, one
Oh.
company of six para stayed there to provide security to the president to ensure that there is no threat. And after 1 year, then six para also withdrew. So
No.
this turned out to be, in spite of all the gray areas and all, a very successful operation. And there were lots
Yeah.
of lessons which were learned from it, and lots of lessons which were implemented.
Yeah.
And the first lesson, of course, yeah. Anything question you have? Yeah.
No, no. I would just a thought over here. It was kind of touch and go with that whole hostage situation, because it was like, because the ships kept on following them, and if if they were not mercenaries, if they were actually like very radicalized folks, I mean, they were using those hostages as human shields. They could have done a lot of harm and just gone down with the ship, but since so it was kind of touch and go. It was
See, the
very
point
serious
was
situation for that
the point
one and a
was
half days.
the context at that time, because this was not an international that kind of a situation at that time, and
Yeah.
most of the people on the board were the ones who were the criminals, like Abdullah Lutfi and some of his collaborators, and these people. And there were four, five, or six, or I think I don't remember the exact number of Maldivians who were taken as hostages. One
Yeah.
known was the shipping minister and his wife, and
Mhm.
maybe two, three other people. But at that
Okay.
stage, it was found that it was felt that it is more important to get them, and possibly, uh, I mean, it is good psychological assessment of the situation by the Navy. I would give that credit to them,
Yep.
because evidently they didn't kill them. They could have. They had ample time to kill the
Yes.
hostage.
Yes. Yes.
They
So
didn't.
yeah.
So it
Okay.
was
So
overall a very interesting. And you know what happened when we went
yeah.
there? Another thing which I must tell you, it was full of tourists. There were so many foreigners on the beaches and all this happening in a country. All of a sudden, they didn't know that the president is in
Right.
hiding. So
Yeah.
on the fourth morning, all this thing happening and army coming in and all. And the Indian Army got a very good media coverage. The Indian
Yep.
Army, that's the first time. There were articles in the Times magazine and I think the Newsweek magazine also at that time. And they mentioned that India has now reached the status of a regional power.
Wow.
So it was a great operation that we did. And I think the political leadership gets a credit for having taken the initiative. The defense
Yep.
forces get it for having risking it out. And lady luck with us that they were not smart enough to block the exit.
I mean, every operation has some amount of some component of
Absolutely.
luck also that has to go your way, because if they, with so many uncertainties that are out there, and luck always favors the brave, right? As they say. So only the brave ones, they go ahead, and luck has to favor them. I wanted to share this photo that this picture that you've shared. Just want to share that real quick.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Sorry, let me just. Someone's calling me. And
Yeah, you're
so,
getting
can
a
you see
call.
my can you see
Yeah,
my screen?
yes. On the extreme right is the young me wearing a
Yeah, that's
jacket.
you.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
me.
that's
And
uh-huh.
this helicopter is a seeking helicopter from one of ships.
Oh, okay.
They landed in the stadium in Malé. We were housed camped in a stadium. The one in the
Hmm.
whites is my commanding officer, Kanayalal Sharma.
Oh, okay. That
And the
is
one
done great.
sitting down right in front of him, instead of in front of Karan Sharma, is Captain R.D. Punekar.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, and some other officers, the doctor and things like that, who
I
have
see.
been, there at the. So it was a very,
Right.
very interesting kind of an operation, and it went off well. And after that, we had a wonderful relationship with the Maldives for till
Hmm.
now, recent times.
Yeah.
Gayum continued, and we used to get invitation on every annual day Maldives as guests of the state. I never went.
Of,
Karan
right.
Joshi went once or twice.
Oh, okay.
And
So
Joshi,
here's Sorry to interrupt. So, we were talking about lessons learned, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
seems like if it was a wonderfully executed operation, things went in our favor.
yeah.
Some of those uncertainties that were out there, a lot of things went in our favor, but also we sort of executed that
No one
plan
mentioned,
very accurate,
no one mentioned,
very nicely. So, what are the
The
lessons in this?
first lesson I would say was that the political initiative and will for action was apparent. That's a good thing. The second thing, which main lesson which the military, that the para brigade learned was operativeness. So
Hmm.
after this operation, we were not ready for short notices thing. After that operation, a system of spearhead came
Hmm.
into vogue, where one battalion is always ready to react with everything ready, their ammunition, their logistics, everything packed,
Oh.
and the strength there. So there's a spearhead battalion which is always maintained by the para brigade, which can react quickly anywhere in the
Hmm.
world
Ah, I
for out
see.
of area
Okay.
contingencies, for internal contingencies, and that brigade has been, now I won't name the instances, has many times been mobilized.
Okay.
That battalion for various
Hmm.
operations in Bangladesh here, there. They didn't go there, but anything, any eventuality, any kind of a situation, that is a ready force which can immediately react, followed by the rest of the brigade. And I won't get the timings and all, which are ready for the one company, then the battalion, and then the brigade. So those are set
Yeah.
procedures, and so that is what we learned from this thing. The Air Force learned a lot. See, Air
Okay.
Force in Agra, when all these follow up, all these aircraft landed up in Agra, these three were the initial. But the rest of the brigade, there were so many AN-32s, IL-76s, all packed over there. They learned that this is a big logistics hub. But they didn't even have a 22,000 liter Bowser. They had 11,000 liter Bowsers. And it would have taken them so much time to fuel so many aircraft. So
Right.
that's the learned. Then communications was an issue.
Hmm.
Communication between the Air Force and the Army, like we were in quite silos. The communication
Hmm.
between the Air Force station and the para brigade was always down. There's one line which would get jammed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So lots of things we learned. Then I told you about the ATC. What the Air
Yeah.
Force says that they have qualified people, and if there's an operation, the ATC is manned by the Air Force people.
Ah.
So there's no
Right. Right.
problem of your route. What do you? So here this was, they had to, a false route they had to record that they're going to
Right. Right.
Trivandrum. And actually they peeled off and went to Malay. It was there only. So
I
all
see.
these kind of issues. Now,
I.
another
I.
thing I would say is the concept of security. It's a very
Hmm.
important lesson. See, when
Okay.
on the news, BBC was announcing there's a coup and things like that, but we didn't know what the hell is happening here.
Right.
The sense of security, no one is telling exactly, oh, this is it, please go ahead, you have to go there to Maldives and you have to
Right.
do that. The sense of security, it has to be mired. Even when I'm getting calls from the brigade headquarters, no one's telling me
Right.
that you go into an operational situation, open your ammunition, arm your weapons, do whatever, that. So the sense of security. There's another thing which also one learns is that in everything, in life, of course, personalities play a very major role.
Uh-huh.
In the beginning, I told you that six para had two companies already committed.
Yeah.
Three para was fully there. But the personality of the CEO of six para and the rapport he had with the brigade commander made him task him. And
Hmm.
so
Okay.
there was cross attachment, reorbiting, which took right at the beginning. That one company of another battalion was placed under command another battalion and went. Of course, it didn't have any issues because we were together, airborne and all, but it's against a principle of war. But personalities play a part. Then
Right.
again, my CEO had so much of faith in me that though I was doing the adjutant, he told me, you take Alpha Company and go.
Haha.
If
Right.
Alpha Company CEO was not there, he could have told Bravo Company, Charlie Company that, okay, you go. He had
Right.
faith in me. So trust and faith in this and personalities are a very important thing.
Yeah, there's always that human element that plays a part in all the decisions that are made, especially at a short notice, because we can't really plan out everything. So there's these connections that are built, and the whole thing of trust
Yeah.
that plays a huge factor in that. So I'm assuming
Positives, of
a lot of.
the
I'm
positive
sorry.
lessons, of course, are that India
Yeah.
was recognized as a regional power, and the
Yes.
behavior of our troops was appreciated by the foreign tourists. They said it's such a disciplined army. I mean, they weren't
Yeah.
bothered at all in any way. There was no sign of any wrongdoing, any loot, nothing. The army
Yeah,
was so well disciplined, and we got
professionals.
coverage international. The US was also thankful. As a matter of fact, the US felt good that, okay, they are ready to take some responsibilities which they always want us to do, rather than them jumping in every place.
Right,
Uh,
because Diego Garcia is not very far, and I mean, the U.S. also could have intervened if we were not able to like sort of take things under control, but they didn't have to because we were so they
yeah.
executed Operation Cactus so effectively. So that's how it sort of ended up.
Actually,
I mean,
they were much nearer. They were much nearer. Diego Garcia
yeah,
was just 900 kilometers. We flew more than 3,000 kilometers.
right. And I'm assuming a lot of these lessons learned. I mean, some of these lessons must have been implemented in the upcoming years and decades. And things are a lot more. Like, I think we're talking about jointness now, where a lot of these
Yeah, a lot of
services which used to hack in
obviously, yeah,
silos, so
absolutely. Then
jointness has to be
we have a CDS now. We have
right.
before that we have integrated defense staff. There's lots of actions which happen in integration.
How do
We
you
are trying
think
to theater commands. We are looking at theater commands where
theater commands? Yes.
so that's
So
happening.
the relationship between India and Maldives, it's been sort of going on the downswing now. I mean, China has gotten stronger, and then it has a strategy of like the string of pearls where it wants to create around India in the Indian Ocean. And accordance to that strategy, China has been sort of giving a lot of these monies for infrastructure projects within these countries, including Maldives. So it's been sort of like drifting away from India's sphere of influence towards the Chinese sphere of influence. How do you see this relationship going forward, and what can India do to sort of get it back to us, or is that even possible right now?
We were just talking about personalities. And
Right.
this president who has come in has a Chinese tilt. The
Yeah.
president before him had an Indian tilt. The
Okay.
president before him had a Chinese tilt. So
Okay.
personalities do have their tilts, and they do win elections on certain perceived notions, certain perceived ideas which they sell to the people. A politician basically his prime aim is to win the elections. He
Yep.
sees how the things are going. The second issue is that China has deep pockets.
Yeah.
China has the money. China has reclaimed sea land for them and made a port out there, which we are worried about because he's doing that. And therefore, to counter that, we had our helicopters there. We had put our maritime radars out there. Now he's told that all military personnel should go out. Possibly
Hmm.
it is because of some pressure from the Chinese side, or to please the Chinese, or whatever it is that they're coming out. But it doesn't make much difference to us. Like you would have read in the news that we have established a new naval base in Minicoy, which is the
Hmm.
30 nautical miles from the northernmost atoll, from Maldives. So we have presence out there, and Maldives cannot see. They have said that now they have asked us for aid also.
Hmm.
They asked us for
That
aid
is so
to
weird. Right.
give them vaccinations for this when COVID was on. We gave them vaccinations. They can't do
Yeah.
without India also. India
Right.
now is a big enough power. This is signaling.
Yeah.
Whether
Okay.
one helicopter is there and we had 20, 30, 40 people, 50 people, if they are there or they are in Minicoy or they are in Trivandrum or Cochin, it doesn't make
Hmm.
much of a difference.
So
This
is
is
it?
signaling, political signaling, domestic
Yeah.
signaling, international signaling that is doing. But Maldives
Hmm.
cannot do without us. And the majority of the people, I've met the chief of defense staff, chief of the forces later on, when I was a lieutenant general and commandant NDC, their foreign minister. Whenever they used to visit, I used to be invited always by the MEA or someone, for a banquet or to meet them and this and all. They're very
Right.
friendly towards us. The general population understands that India is a good friend and we can
Yeah.
help them at times. So these things will pass, I think. What India
Okay.
rather is done is also shown them in a way that, that we can have Lakshadweep as an alternate to your tourism thing. We can dent that also. And there was a
Right.
wave, actually, which I do not second, but there was a wave of cancellation of troops and things like that and all. And more
Hmm.
Chinese came in. So, it is a small place. It's a very niche place. They cannot have too many tourists. If Indian tourists
Right.
don't go there, others will fill in the place. So, I, for
Right.
one thing, it is not a diplomatically good thing. You have to continue
Mhm.
their dependence on us.
Right.
But otherwise, as a general population, they're very friendly. And
Very
this
friendly.
is passing phases. Politicians come, politicians go, nations stay. And we are
Yeah,
too
I
close
mean,
to them. We are too close to them. They cannot afford. China is very far.
China is very far. Yes, and it's one of those things where they it's good to have dependence of them, of us on them,
Them on us.
to be able to enforce.
China is them
Or
on
them,
us.
or sorry. Yes, yes. Absolutely right. And the only point on that is, like, if this president is a one-term president, then he's not able to make too many changes in the overall foreign policy of Maldives. But if the president stays for too long and has a Chinese tilt, maybe that could lead to one of those where it's like a complete tilt. But that's yet
See,
to be seen, I guess.
you see, China also now, I mean, China has crossed its heyday.
Hmm.
The Chinese
Okay.
economy is slightly on the first time the growth rate has gone down.
Yep.
Their population reduction is becoming an issue. So China also has deep pockets. How long? They also don't want to waste money. They extract their pound of flesh, whether it is Hambantota in Sri Lanka, whether it is
Yes.
some pound of flesh they will take from them. And people slowly realize that their, is not a totally platonic relationship. It's a relationship of give and take, and China takes a
Yeah.
lot. And
Yeah.
people
It's
slowly
it's
realize.
very transactional with the Chinese. Yes.
Sri Lanka has realized it. I mean, Sri Lanka
Yes.
went totally into the Chinese pocket when Mukha and no, sorry, uh,
Hambandor.
they were there. So they're slowly coming back. They realize that they can't because they're too close to us. Similarly,
Yeah.
Maldives is too close to us, and India is a big part. They just cannot ignore us, and they cannot have
Yes.
the Chinese out there. And the Chinese, it is not a place to establish a base for the Chinese. It doesn't make any strategic sense for them. It's too far
Okay.
out and small islands and coral islands and difficult seas and things like that. They have a
Yeah.
base in Ethiopia and they have a base in Burma.
Djibouti.
Yeah, Djibouti. Chinese have a base there,
Djibouti. Yeah. Yeah.
Djibouti,
Okay.
and they have a base
Wow.
in Burma.
Yeah.
And then Hambantota now they can park their ships in Sri Lanka. So Maldives, if they have Hambantota in Sri Lanka, then and Govardhan they
They don't.
possibly have in the Arabian Sea.
Maldives. Right. Right. That makes sense. Well, so an
Or
amazing. So it's so amazing that you vividly remember a lot of these details from 1988. I was 3 years old at that time. It was so long back,
some of them I
and
just
you.
brushed up. Some of them I just add some
Okay.
little. I just looked through it. When you told me, I just looked through it.
Well,
Like the
well,
dates
thank you
and
for all the
timings.
research.
See, the
Right, right.
dates and timings, these were written by the captain of Betwa.
Ah, I
After
see. Okay.
retirement, his thoughts he had penned down somewhere, which I got hold of.
Right.
Because these naval dates and all timings are correct. They are from their war book.
Yeah. It
How
was
the
Operation Cactus, right? Operation Cactus was one of those moments where Indian Army was like, we Indian Armed Forces, we show to the rest of the world that we are also here, right?
Yes,
And we can project power outside of our immediate neighborhood as well, through like these para drops and the para
Air
brigades
Force,
going in.
Air Force,
Air
Navy.
Force,
Yeah.
Army, all and Navy all jointly working together towards a common objective. So this was a very important, a very crucial operation, and I'm glad that folks like you were there as a part of it to tell us all of the details of that. Is there
And
any final
one thing I would
thoughts?
like
Sorry,
to
go ahead.
add, one interesting
Yes.
facet I would like to add that on the 3rd November, when the night all this happened, to show the strength and the power that India had, early morning on the 4th of November, the break of dawn, mirages flew over Malé and Hulule, Indian
Wow.
mirages flew over. And a very interesting thing, which I learned just now, a few months back, that one of that mirage was being piloted by a coursemate of mine and your father's.
Oh, nice.
MS Mandir. MS Mandir was in the this thing, and he just mentioned. I met him over a drink the other day. He said, "Oh, we went to Malé, 4th November, flew over. I think we did have us on the ground."
Wow.
And good news. India has that power. India has that
India
power,
has that
and
power.
we have
Yes.
the wherewithal to protect ourselves.
So,
Thank you.
any final thoughts for our viewers before
Thank you
we
so much.
stop?
Thank you so much. It's been very nice being with you. A very good experience for me. As a matter of fact, No one has so much of time to listen to me on these old things. No one wants to listen to old days stories. So I'm very happy that you very patiently listen to all my old stories. Thank you very much.
No, sir. Thank you so much for taking out the time. It was a wonderful experience for me to sort of learn all these things, and for you to sort of go and sort of dig into your all of the research that you had
Yeah.
to do for this. So this was an amazing experience for me.
I hope
Um,
your audience will enjoy it and get something out of it. Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. And for the audience, please subscribe, like, comment, share to get more updates on Indian military history. And well, thank you so much, sir. It was an honor chatting with you and doing this
Thank you.
podcast with you. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
sir.
Thank you.